Hi everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I'm going to be doing a first impressions video on the Urban Decay Naked Flushed palette. So if you haven't heard of or seen this palette, it's another in the line of Naked palettes by Urban Decay. So first Urban Decay did two eye palettes that were naked colors. A lot of them were shimmery. They just recently came out with a smaller palette that has matte shades, and they finally released at Ulta and Sephora a little palette called the Naked Flush palette, which is actually a face palette. So the Naked Flush palette has what they call a bronzer, a highlight shade, and then they have a blush. And I believe that all of these shades are so kind of stereotypical shades that I'm not even going to swatch them for you, because you can pretty much see just by the picture that Urban Decay has on their website and right here. There's nothing too special about these shades necessarily. They only released one shade in this palette, or one depth, I guess, of color of this palette, so I think it's just kind of intended to be very multi-purpose for as many different skin types as possible. So I was just going to give you my first impressions of this. First of all, it's a really small palette, so you can see my hand. It's just very tiny. It almost is a little bit bigger than the palm of my hand. I like the size of it. I like the case. It's a nice plastic case. Seems pretty heavy duty. The mirror almost takes up the whole entire inside of the top cover of the case, which is really nice. You see me video cameraing over there. You see my camera. And then on the inside, you have all the shades just kind of run together in the same part. So first I'm going to talk about the bronzer. So the bronzer, it's a pretty nice color for light and fair skin tones. I put it on today and it was really easy to put on without overdoing. It doesn't look orangey, it doesn't look too dirt colored, it's just a nice standard kind of bronze. What's interesting about it is that I haven't seen very many bronzers that have the kind of finish that it has. Most of the time bronzers are either matte or they have sort of a shimmery to them, or at least some sort of sparkle or some sort of light reflective little particles that you can actually see when you're looking at them after you swatch them. This bronzer, however, it just has a very, very fine sheen to it. It actually has a sheen finish, and I've never seen a bronzer that just has a very subtle sheen to it. Or if I have, it's more obvious. This is just very, very subtle. So it's not really a matte bronzer. It has a very subtle sheen. And I think that that's nice when it comes to a bronzer. I liked it. I think it would provide just a very nice subtle glow on the skin without you being able to detect any kind of shimmer whatsoever. I was a little bit disappointed on the downside of the sheen, that it's not, I don't think, the best to use for a contour shade, which I would have loved to be able to use all of my face products except for powder from this little Naked Flush palette. So that's one downside. I do like that the formula has a little bit of a sheen to it. I think it's really great for a bronzer, but for a contour, it's a subtle sheen, so I would be careful, because I did use it to try to contour like my cheekbones today, and it doesn't seem to show up. At least I can't see the sheen reflecting light, but I know that it does because I have a very long pointy nose, and I always try to contour the tip of my nose to make it look shorter. And when I did that, I could definitely see the light in front of me on my vanity reflecting off of the tip of my nose, and it looked like a shiny pointy nose. It was not good. So I know for a fact that it's probably not the best shade to contour with. So that's my impression about the bronzer. And the highlight shade, it's pretty good for a highlight. It's kind of pink toned, but you can't detect it very much on the skin, just a little bit. If you're someone who likes a highlighter to be very, very smooth, where you really can't detect any kind of little glittery, shimmery particles, then I don't think you're going to like this probably the most. It is a pretty subtle glitter. It's not big chunks, but when I look at it swatched on my hand, it is, let's see, if I don't know if you can tell at all in the camera, but you can see Okay, so I blended it out like I would on my face. You can see I can see little individual sparkly specks. And that's not my favorite for a highlight. I like it to be a little bit more subtle, but it is pretty for a highlight. I mean, you just know that you are going to see little tiny specks. To compare it to another highlight, the Lorac Highlighters, if you have any of those, they have one in Spotlight that's very popular. It's a little smoother. You can't really see the little flecks. It's hard to describe because they are very subtle and they're very small in this Urban Decay Naked Flush Palette highlighter, but they are there. You can see them. At least I can. That's my impression of it. So it's not the most subtle highlight, but it is pretty. It's very pretty on the skin. So then on to the blush. The blush is actually my favorite thing about this palette. It's a very standard, very, very pretty pink, and I would even say it's warm, it's neutral to warm in color, I would say, which is exactly what I use as a blush, so I loved it. I put it on today. It's just it's subtle but beautiful. It was easy for me to apply. I applied it with a very soft brush, and I have a light to pale skin tone. It's very light. My skin tone is pretty light. I'm winter now, so I'm usually light to fair. I'm usually getting the lightest or the second to lightest shade in most foundation ranges. But the blush is mostly matte. It has tiny little sparkle in it, and it might even have like a very slight sheen, kind of like the bronzer, but I don't think I noticed it as much when I swatched the blush as I did on the bronzer. So it's mostly just a matte blush shade. It's very pretty though, very, very pretty. So in terms of the price of this compact, I thought that it was a pretty good value for the price. I will definitely use the bronzer and the blush a ton, and so even just between those two, I think it's a good price. It was in the upper 20s. I believe it was $27. But the one thing, so negative things, other than what I've said, the main negative thing that I have, the main beef I don't like I have with this palette is that they have all the shades run together. For me, if it's going to be like your one go-to palette, you know, where you use it all the time and you're someone who just wants that one product that you're going to use over and over again, you're going to be hitting pan on this product. You know, I mean, if you want to use up the whole product, it's going to be really hard once you get down, you know, because they're all run together. I mean, you're going to be trying to scoop up your bronzer and you're going to be getting it in with your highlighter, or your highlight's going to be getting in with your blush, and that I think is really wasteful, because once you get to a certain point, you're not going to be able to get any more product without mixing them all together. So that I don't love. I wish that they would have just put in a little piece of plastic in between these just to separate them, because it's just more practical in terms of money and how much you're going to be able to use of your product. For me, it doesn't bother me that much because I know I have lots of products. I'm always getting more products and I love trying new things, so I don't end up hitting pan on that many of my products. I mean, I use them all. I use everything that I have, but it takes me a really long time to go through a product for the most part. But I mean, bronzer is something that you find your favorite bronzer, and this could easily be like a favorite bronzer because it's so easy to use. You know, I can see a lot of people using the whole thing up. And same with the blush. I mean, these are really go-to shades a lot of people would use as their maybe #1 blush and bronzer. They're really great. So, you know, that's my one beef, is that it doesn't have the separation, so just keep that in mind. It's going to be difficult for you to use once you get all the way down. If you're one who likes to use every last bit of your product, you might be displeased by the time you get all the way down there. But overall, I really like this product. Even though I can't use the bronzer as a contour shade, I thought that it was really unique, the sheen that it gives off. The blush was gorgeous, maybe not super special or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure that shade has been done many times before, but it's really pretty. It's nice to have it handy in here with the other products. It's got a nice mirror. I like the size, the feel of the compact. The highlighter is gorgeous. It's just got a little bit, you will be able to detect like glitter-ish, tiny little sparkly pieces in it. Very fine, but still you see it on your skin. So I hope that that was helpful, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye!